We are live.
Hey, sorry I missed you on Wednesday, but glad to see you on Friday. Uh, I had told Lady Thistle I had woke up at 3 o'clock that morning with borderline migraine and could not go back to sleep. So I was miserable Wednesday, but I am here, ready to do this. Apologize. I am old new dude. He is,
Richard York, Asher's trueborn son.
and this is Danny Four.
Yeah, the immortal
Before we
Dario
hit live,
Naharis.
when Richard comes on, we start talking
Yeah,
and we forget that we're not going live or anything. We're just talking,
we're a
and
few
we look at
seconds
the
late.
clock. We're like, oh no, we got to hit live. So
Yeah,
if we're a couple of seconds late or even a minute or two here,
probably why.
it's all Richard's fault.
Yeah, of course.
Hmm. All right,
Hi,
man, take it away,
Asanji.
Bernie.
I'm gonna do these. I'm gonna do these 1-3. Let's do 1-3-2-4. One is hi, Asanji. Chris is waving from the wall. Sanji, damn, beat Chris. Chris, congrats.
Yeah, it's rare that Chris gets beat.
All right, Storm 42, Daenerys 4. The immortal Dario Naharis joins Mother.
You mean binging?
No. He's
I
immortal.
know, I know, I know. Do you want to let everybody know what we're
Oh, I'm
looking for
sorry.
here?
I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that,
Oh,
Lizzie.
Lizzie, I am so sorry.
All right.
Hey, let everybody know what we're looking for with Daria. I know you said it Monday, but just in case they forgot.
Yeah. So we know that there are characters that live extra long lives in A Song of Ice and Fire, right? We've got the Undying. We've got Brendan. We've got Melisandre. So we know what Melisandre's trying to do. She's trying to help Stannis. It seems like you'd think one of them would realize that Dany is the princess that was promised. The dragons prove it, and so we'll be trying to help Dany, right? We'll be
Right.
motivated to find, get to, and help Dany, and perhaps might even pull a Quentin, right? Join a sellsword company to get close on the other side, and then betray the sellsword company to help Dany, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense to ask yourself, well, who in this story would that be? Given that there ought to be such people in this world, who fits that? And the answer is Dario fits that. He tells us that he is that, and we ignore him, right?
Right.
George has him tell us, "I am that person you're looking for," and we ignore him as just a boastful guy, right? So,
And I pointed out, I think was the last time or before, that for him to be as proficient and famous in the fighting pits, then why doesn't Strong Belowas or whatever his name is recognize him or know him? So we're saying that Dario is older than that. So his time
right.
in the fighting pits was long before Strong Belowas or whatever his name is. I can't pronounce it.
No, you said it right.
Okay. Long before that he was there, and then that's why he doesn't recognize Dario. So
Yep.
on that aspect alone, it intrigues me on the Dario is older than he appears to be. And
Yeah,
then
when we get there, we'll tell you
on
that it reminds me of something else that George does too. It's not the first time he's done this.
right now, the part of me that says Dario is binging says,
Shall we?
take it away.
The Dothraki scouts had told her how it was, but Dany wanted to see for herself. Sir Jorah Mormont rode with her through a birchwood forest and up a slanting sandstone ridge. Near enough, he warned her at the crest. Dany reined in her mare and looked across the fields to where the Yunkish host lay athwart her path. Whitebeard had been teaching her how best to count the numbers of a foe. 5,000, she said after a moment. I'd say so, Sir Jorah pointed. Those are sellswords on the flanks, lances and mounted bowmen, swords and axes for the close work. The second sons on the left wing and the storm crows to the right. About 500 men apiece. See the banners? Yonkai's heartbeat grasped a whip and iron collar in her talons instead of a length of chain. But the sellswords flew their own standards beneath those of the city they served. On the right, four crows between crossed thunderbolts. On the left, a broken sword. The Yonkais hold the center themselves, Dany noted. Their officers looked indistinguishable from Astapors at a distance. tall, bright helms and cloaks sewn with flashing copper discs. Are those slave soldiers they lead? In large part, but not the equal of Unsullied. Yunkai is known for training bed slaves, not warriors. What say you? Can we defeat this army? Easily, Sir Jorah said, but not bloodlessly. Blood aplenty had soaked into the bricks of Astapor the day that city fell, though little of it belonged to her or hers. We might win a battle here, but at such cost we cannot take the city. That is ever a risk, Khaleesi. Astapor is complacent and vulnerable. Yunkai is forewarned. Dany considered. The slaver host seemed small compared to her own numbers, but the sellswords were a horse. She had ridden too long with the Thraki not to have a healthy respect for what mounted warriors could do to foot. The Unsullied could withstand their charge, but my freedmen will be slaughtered. The slavers like to talk, she said. Send word that I will hear them this evening in my tent, and invite the captains of the sellsword companies to call on me as well, but not together. The storm crows at midday. The second sun's 2 hours later. As you wish, Sir Jorah said, but if they do not come, they'll come. They'll be curious to see the dragons and hear what I might have to say, and the clever ones will see it for a chance to gauge my strength. She wheeled her silver mare about. I'll await them in my pavilion. Slate skies and brisk winds saw Dany back to her host. The deep ditch that would encircle her camp was already half dug, and the woods were full of Unsullied lopping branches off birch trees to sharpen into stakes. The eunuchs could not sleep in an unfortified camp, or so Grey Worm insisted. He was there watching the work. Dany halted a moment to speak with him. Yunkai has girded up her loins for battle. This is good, your grace. These ones thirst for blood. When she had commanded the Unsullied to choose officers from amongst themselves, Grey Worm had been their overwhelming choice for the highest rank. Dany had put Sir Jorah over him to train him for command, and the exile knights said that so far the young eunuch was hard but fair, quick to learn, tireless, and utterly unrelenting in his attention to detail.
Hey, I got a question. The Unsullied are basically emotionless, right?
Okay.
Then how do they thirst for blood or battle?
Well, we know that they're not really.
Okay.
We've talked before about how even when they tell them these things, they then tell them that if they sold them in less than 100, that they would become corrupted. Their uncorruptible soldier would be corrupted.
Yes, this is true. Okay.
When she had commanded the Unsullied to choose, we did that. The wise masters have assembled a slave army to meet us. A slave in Yunkai learns the way of 7 sighs and the 16 seats of pleasure, your grace. The Unsullied learn the way of the 3 spears. Your Grey Worm hopes to show you. One of the first things Dany had done after the fall of Astapor was abolish the custom of giving the Unsullied new slave names every day. Most of those born free had returned to their birth names, those who still remembered them at least. Others had called themselves after heroes or gods, and sometimes weapons, gems, and even flowers, which resulted in soldiers with some very peculiar names to Dany's ears. Grey Worm had remained Grey Worm. When she asked him why, he said, "It is a lucky name. The name this one was born to was accursed. That was the name he had when he was taken for a slave. But Grey Worm is the name this one drew the day Daenerys Stormwall set him free." Hey, James.
Hey, James.
It's a directed emotion. If battle is joined, let Grey Worm show wisdom as well as valor, Dany told him. Spare any slave who runs or throws down his weapon. The fewer slain, the more remain to join us after. This one will remember. I know he will. Be at my tent by midday. I want you there with my other officers when I treat with the sellsword captains. Dany spurred her silver on to camp. Within the perimeter the Unsullied had established, the tents were going up in orderly rows, with her own tall golden pavilion at the center. A second encampment lay close beyond her own, 5 times the size, sprawling and chaotic. The second camp had no ditches, no tents, no sentries, no horse lines. Those who had horses or mules slept beside them for fear they might be stolen. Goats, sheep, and half-starved dogs wandered freely amongst hordes of women, children, and old men. Dany had left Astapor in the hands of a council of former slaves led by a healer, a scholar, and a priest. Wise men all, she thought, and just. Yet even so, tens of thousands preferred to follow her to Yunkai rather than remain behind in Astapor. I gave them the city, and most of them were too frightened to take it. The raggle-taggle host of freedmen dwarfed her own, but they were more burden than benefit. Perhaps 1 in 100 had a donkey, a camel, or an ox. Most carried weapons looted from some slaver's armory, while only 1 in 10 was strong enough to fight, and none was trained. They ate the land bare as they passed, like locusts in sandals. Yet Dany could not bring herself to abandon them as Sir Jorah and her blood riders urged. I told them they were free. I cannot tell them now that they are not free to join me. She gazed at the smoke rising from the cook fires and swallowed a sigh. She might have the best foot soldiers in the world, but she also had the worst. Arsa Whitebeard stood outside the entrance of her tent, while Strong Belwas sat cross-legged on the grass nearby, eating a bowl of figs. Figs are probably safer than honeyed locusts. On the march, the duty of guarding her fell upon their shoulders. She had made Jogo, Ago, and Ricaro her coes as well as her blood riders, and just now she needed them more to command her Dothraki than to protect her person. Her Khalasar was tiny, some 30-odd mounted warriors, most of them braidless boys and bent-back old men. Yet they were all the horse she had, and she dared not go without them. The Unsullied might be the finest infantry in all the world, as Sir Jorah claimed. She needed scouts and outriders as well. So I wrote this down later, but let's go through it now. Jogo, I would say that you pretty much need a whip to make me take up jogging. So Jogo is the whip. Ago, whose name kind of sounds like arrow, is the bowman, and Ricaro, whose name is basically Arak if you take the first letter and move it to the end, and then add row to it, is the Arak, right?
Okay.
And that's pretty much the only difference between them you'll see in the text, other than Iri and Jeekwe kind of have a thing for Ricaro.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, there's not a whole lot more distinguishing them, unfortunately.
Ah.
Whereas, as we've talked about with Iri and Jeekwe, they're very, very much encoded to be Iri. Iri is Arya and Jeekwe is Sansa, and their names are kind of resemble Arya and Sansa.
Right.
Yunkai will have war, Dany told Whitebeard beside the pavilion. Missandei, what language will these Yunkai speak? Valyrian? Yes, Your Grace, the child said. A different dialect than Astapor's, yet close enough to understand. The slavers name themselves the Wise Masters. Wise? We shall see how wise they are, she said. Sir Jorah Mormont returned an hour later, accompanied by 3 captains of the Stormcrows. They wore black feathers on their polished helms and claimed to be all equal in honor and authority. Then he studied them as Iri and Jeekwe poured the wine. Prendel na Gezin was a thick-set Giscari with a broad face and dark hair going gray. Salar the Bald had a twisting scar across his pale Carthene cheek, and Dario Naharis was flamboyant even for a Tyroshi. His beard was cut into 3 prongs and dyed blue, the same color as his eyes, and the curly hair that fell to his collar. But we know that blue hair dye can hide purple eyes. Just saying.
I was thinking the exact same thing. I don't read your script anymore. I read the book, but sometimes I think exactly what you're thinking.
His pointed mustachios were painted gold. His clothes were all shades of yellow. A foam of mirrorless lace the color of butter spilled from his collar and cuffs. His doublet was sewn with brass medallions in the shape of dandelions, and ornamental goldwork crawled up his high leather boots to his thighs. Gloves of soft yellow suede were tucked into a belt of gilded rings, and his fingernails were enamel blue. I wonder why in this paragraph there's one sentence for each of these first 2 guys, and then there's like 2/3 of this paragraph is devoted to telling us about Dario.
There you go.
Yep, me too, says Edward Martin. He caught that as well. But it was Prendel na Gezin who spoke for the sellswords. And it's like he has to say but, because even though I've made it clear here that Dario is where I'm spending all my time, it's Prendel na Gezin who spoke for the sellswords.
Yeah.
You would do well to take your rebel elsewhere, he said. You took Astapor by treachery, but Yunkai shall not fall so easily. 500 of your Stormcrows against 10,000 of my Unsullied, said Dany. I am only a young girl, do not understand the ways of war, yet these odds seem poor to me. The Stormcrows do not stand alone, said Prendel. Stormcrows do not stand at all. They fly at the first sign of thunder. Perhaps you should be flying now. I've heard that sellswords are notoriously unfaithful. What will it avail you to be staunch when the second sons change sides? That will not happen, Prendel insisted, unmoved. And if it did, it would not matter. The second sons are nothing. We fight beside the stalwart men of Yunkai. You fight beside bedboys armed with spears. When she turned her head, the twin bells in her braid rang softly. Once battle is joined, do not think to ask for quarter. Join me now, however, and you shall keep the gold the Yunkai paid you. Claim a share of the plunder besides, with greater rewards later when I come into my kingdom. Fight for the Wise Masters, and your wages will be death. Do you imagine that Yunkai will open its gates when my Unsullied are butchering you beneath the walls? Woman, you bray like an ass and make no more sense. Woman? She chuckled. Is that meant to insult me? I would return the slap if I took you for a man. Dany met his stare. I am Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen, the Unburnt, Mother of Dragons, Khaleesi to Drogo's riders, and Queen of the Seven Kingdoms of Westeros. What you are, said Prendel Noggezen, is a horse lord's whore. When we break you, I will breed you to my stallion. Strong Belwas drew his auric. Strong Belwas will give his ugly tongue to the little queen if she likes. No, Belwas, I have given these men my safe conduct. She smiled. Tell me this, are the Stormcrows slave or free? We are a brotherhood of free men, Salar declared. Lady Thistle, my girl. Good, Dany stood. Go back and tell your brothers what I said then. It may be that some of them would sooner sup on golden glory than on death. I shall want your answer on the morrow. The Stormcrow captains rose in unison. Our answer is no, said Prendel Noggezen. His fellows followed him out of the tent, but Daario Naharis glanced back as he left and inclined his head in polite farewell. 2 hours later, the commander of the Second Sons arrived alone. He proved to be a towering Braavosi with pale green eyes and a bushy red-gold beard that reached nearly to his belt. His name was Mero, but he called himself the Titan's Bastard. Mero tossed down his wine straight away, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and leered at Dany. I believe I fucked your twin sister in a pleasure house back home, or was it you? I think not. I would remember a man of such magnificence, I have no doubt. Yes, that is so. No woman has ever forgotten the Titan's Bastard. Braavosi held out his cup to Jiqui. What say you take those clothes off and come sit on my lap? If you please me, I might bring the Second Sons over to your side. If you bring the Second Sons over to my side, I might not have you gelded. The big man laughed. Little girl, another woman once tried to geld me with her teeth. She has no teeth now, but my sword is as long and thick as ever. Shall I take it out and show you? No need. After my eunuchs cut it off, I can examine it at my leisure. Then he took a sip of wine. It is true that I am only a young girl, and do not know the ways of war. Explain to me how you propose to defeat 10,000 Unsullied with your 500. Innocent as I am, these odds seem poor to me. The Second Sons have faced worse odds and won. The Second Sons have faced worse odds and run. At Qohor when the 3,000 made their stand. Or do you deny it? That was many and more years ago, before the Second Sons were led by the Titan's Bastard. So it is from you they get their courage? Dany turned to Ser Jorah. When the battle is joined, kill this one first. The Exile Knight smiled. Gladly, your grace. Of course, she said to Mero. You could run again. We will not stop you. Take your youngish gold and go. Had you ever seen the Titan of Braavos, foolish girl, you would know that it has no tail to turn. Then stay and fight for me. You are worth fighting for, it is true, the Braavosi said, and I would gladly let you kiss my sword if I were free, but I have taken Yonkai's coin and pledged my holy word. Coins can be returned, she said. I will pay you as much and more. I have other cities to conquer and a whole kingdom awaiting me half a world away. Serve me faithfully, and the Second Sons need never seek higher again. Braavosi tugged on his thick red beard. As much and more, and perhaps a kiss besides, eh? Or more than a kiss for a man as magnificent as me? Perhaps. Then he clowns him so good, love it.
Yes.
I will like the taste of your tongue, I think. She could sense Ser Jorah's anger. My black bear does not like this talk of kissing. Think on what I've said tonight. Can I have your answer on the morrow? You can, the Titan's Bastard grinned. Can I have a flagon of this fine wine to take back to my cabin, captains? You may have a ton. It is from the cellars of the good masters of Astapor, and I have wagons full of it. Then give me a wagon, a token of your good regard. You have a big thirst. I am big all over, and I have many brothers. Titan's Bastard does not drink alone, Khaleesi. A wagon it is, if you promise to drink to my health. Done, he boomed, and done and done. 3 toasts will drink you, and bring you an answer when the sun comes up. When Mero was gone, Arstan Whitebeard said, that one has an evil reputation, even in Westeros. Do not be misled by his manner, your grace. He will drink 3 toasts to your health tonight and rape you on the morrow. The old man's right for once, Ser Jorah said. The Second Sons are an old company and not without valor, but under Mero they've turned near as bad as the brave companions. The man is as dangerous to his employers as to his foes. That's why you find him out here. None of the free cities will hire him any longer. It's not his reputation that I want, it's his 500 horse. What are the Stormcrows? Is there any hope there? No, Ser Jorah said bluntly. That Prendel is Giscari by blood. Likely he had kin in Astapor. A pity. Well, perhaps we will not need to fight. Let us wait and hear what the Yunkai have to say. The envoys from Yunkai arrived as the sun was going down. 50 men on magnificent black horses and one on a great white camel. Their helms were twice as tall as their heads, so as not to crush the bizarre twists and towers and shapes of their oiled hair beneath. They dyed their linen skirts and tunics a deep yellow and sewed copper discs to their cloaks. The man on the white camel named himself Grasdan Mo Eraz. Lean and hard, he had a white smile such as Krasnus until Drogon burned off his face. His hair was drawn up in a unicorn's horn that jutted from his brow, and his tokar was fringed with golden Mirish lace. Ancient and glorious is Yunkai, the queen of cities, he said when Dany welcomed him to her tent. Our walls are strong, our nobles proud and fierce, our common folk without fear. Ours is the blood of ancient Gis, whose empire was old when Valyria was yet a squalling child. You were wise to sit and speak, Khaleesi. You shall find no easy conquest here. Good. My Unsullied will relish a bit of a fight. She looked at Grey Worm, who nodded. Grasman shrugged expansively. If blood is what you wish, let it flow. I have told you to have freed your eunuchs. Freedom means as much to an Unsullied as a hat to a haddock. He smiled at Grey Worm, but the eunuch might have been made of stone. Those who survive we shall enslave again, and use to retake Astapor from the rabble. We can make a slave of you as well, do not doubt it. There are pleasure houses in Lys and Tyrosh where men would pay handsomely to bed the last Targaryen. It is good to see you know who I am, said Dany mildly. I pride myself on my knowledge of the savage, senseless West. Grasman spread his hands, a gesture of conciliation. And yet, why should we speak thus harshly to one another? It is true that you committed savageries in Astapor, but we Yunkai are a most forgiving people. Your quarrel is not with us, your grace. Why squander your strength against our mighty walls when you will need every man to regain your father's throne in far Westeros? Yunkai wishes you only well in that endeavor, and to prove the truth of that, I have brought you a gift. He clapped his hands, and two of his escort came forward bearing a heavy cedar chest bound in bronze and gold. They set it at her feet. 50,000 golden marks, Grasman said smoothly. Yours is a gesture of friendship from the wise masters of Yunkai. Gold given freely is better than plunder bought with blood, surely. So I say to you, Daenerys Targaryen, take this chest and go. Dany pushed open the lid of the chest with a small slippered foot. It was full of gold coins, just as the envoy said. She grabbed a handful and let them run through her fingers. They shone brightly as they tumbled and fell, new minted most of them, stamped with the stepped pyramid on one face and the harpy of Gis on the other. Very pretty. I wonder how many chests like this I shall find when I take your city. He chuckled. None, for that you shall never do. I have a gift for you as well. She slammed the chest shut. 3 days. On the morrow of the 3rd day, send out your slaves, all of them. Every man, woman, and child shall be given a weapon, and as much food, clothing, coin, and goods as he or she can carry. These they shall be allowed to choose freely from among their master's possessions, as payment for their years of servitude. When all the slaves have departed, you will open your gates and allow my Unsullied to enter and search your city, to make certain none remain in bondage. If you do this, Yunkai will not be burned or plundered, and none of your people shall be molested. The wise masters will have the peace they desire, and will have proved themselves wise indeed. What say you? I say you are mad. Am I? Tyrion 6, Joffrey sneered. You are the monster, uncle. Am I? Tyrion cocked his head. Perhaps you should speak more softly to me then. Monsters are dangerous beasts. Just now kings seem to be dying like flies. Then Tyrion 10. I wish I had enough poison for you all. You make me sorry that I am not the monster you would have me be. Yet there it is. I am innocent, but I will get no justice here. Leave me no choice but to appeal to the gods. I demand trial by battle. So he's sorry. He's called a monster, responds, am I? And then he's sorry that he's not the monster. So he's basically wishing himself to become a monster. And certainly you can refer to the who is the real Tyrion from Alt Shift X if you need more on that, right?
Right.
Dany is called mad, and she responds similarly. So this could be foreshadowing of Dany becoming mad, right?
Right.
Dany shrugged and said, Dracarys. The dragons answered. Rhaegal hissed and smoked. Viserion snapped, and Drogon spat swirling red-black flame. It touched the drape of Grosden's tokar and the silk cot in half a heartbeat. Golden marks spilled across the carpets as the envoy stumbled over the chest, shouting curses and beating on his arm until the Whitebeard flung a flagon of water over him to douse the flames. You swore I should have safe conduct, the youngish envoy wailed. Do all the Yunkai whine so over a singed tokar? I shall buy you a new one if you deliver up your slaves within 3 days. Elsewise, Drogon shall give you a warmer kiss. She wrinkled her nose. You've soiled yourself. Take your gold and go, and see that the wise masters hear my message. So she does not take the gold the way she does in the show, by the way.
Right.
Grosmo Eras pointed a finger. You shall rue this arrogance, whore. These little lizards will not keep you safe, I promise you. We will fill the air with arrows if they come within a league of Yunkai. Do you think it's so hard to kill a dragon? Harder than to kill a slaver. 3 days, Groston. Tell them, by the end of the 3rd day, I will be in Yunkai, whether you open your gates for me or no. Full dark had fallen by the time the Yunkai departed from their camp. It promised to be a gloomy night, moonless, starless, with a chill wet wind blowing from the west. A fine black night, thought Dany. The fires burned all around her, small orange stars strewn across hill and field. Sir Jorah, she said, summon my blood riders. Dany seated herself on a mound of cushions to await them, her dragons all about her. When they were assembled, she said, An hour past midnight should be time enough. Yes, Khaleesi, said Ricardo. Time for what? And we've already talked about that. Ricardo was the Ark.
Mm-hmm.
To mount, and the one that Eerie and GP like. To mount our attack, said Jorah Mormont scowled. You told the sellswords that I wanted their answers on the morrow. I made no promises about tonight. The Stormcrows will be arguing about my offer. The Second Sons will be drunk on the wine I gave Miro. And the Yunkai believe they have 3 days. We will take them under cover of this darkness. They will have scouts watching for us. And in the dark, they will see hundreds of campfires burning, said Dany. If they see anything at all. Khaleesi, said Drogo. I will deal with these scouts. They are no riders, only slavers on horses. And we've already said Jogo's the whip.
Mm-hmm.
Just so, she agreed. I think we should attack them from 3 sides. Grey Worm, you and Sully shall strike at them from right and left, while my cows lead my horse in wedge for a thrust through their center. Slave soldiers will never stand before mounted Dothraki, she smiled. To be sure, I am only a young girl and know little of war. What do you think, my lords? I think you are Rhaegar Targaryen's sister, Sir Jorah said with a rueful half-smile. Our characters are often wrong. See, Triplet Targaryens, episode 4. Aye, said Arthur Whitebeard, and a queen as well. It took an hour to work out all the details. Now begins the most dangerous time, Dany thought as her captains departed to their commands. She could only pray that the gloom of the night would hide her preparations from the foe. Near midnight, she got a scare when Sir Jorah bowled his way past strong Belwas. The Unsullied caught one of the sellswords trying to sneak into the camp. A spy? That frightened her. If they caught one, how many others might have gotten away? Natural generals, says Edward Martin.
Mm-hmm.
He claims to come bearing gifts. It's the yellow fool with the blue hair, Daario Naharis. That one? I'll hear him then. When the exile knight delivered him, she asked herself whether 2 men had ever been so different. The Tyroshi was fair, where Sir Jorah was swarthy. Lithe, where the knight was brawny. Graced with flowing locks, where the other was balding. The other is kind of interesting there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yet smooth skin, where Mormont was hairy. And her knight dressed plainly, while this other made a peacock look drab. So now they're both others, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Though he had thrown a heavy black cloak over his bright yellow finery for this visit, he carried a heavy canvas sack slung over one shoulder. Khaleesi, he cried, I bring gifts and glad tidings. The Stormcrows are yours. A golden tooth gleamed in his mouth when he smiled. And so is Daario Naharis. Dany was dubious. If this Tyroshi had come to spy, this declaration might be no more than a desperate plot to save his head. What do Prendel, Nalgrezin, and Salar say of this? Little. Daario upended the sack, and the heads of Salar the Bald and Prendel and Nalgrezin spilled out upon her carpets. My gifts to the Dragon Queen. Viserion sniffed the blood leaking from Prendel's neck, and let loose a gout of flame that took the dead man full in the face, blackening and blistering his bloodless cheeks. Drogon and Rhaegal stirred at the smell of roasted meat. You did this? Dany asked queasily. None other. For dragons discomfited Daario Naharis, he hid it well. For all the mind he paid them, they might have been 3 kittens playing with a mouse. Why? Because you are so beautiful. His hands were large and strong. There was something in his hard blue eyes and great curving nose that suggested the fierceness of some splendid bird of prey. Prendel talked too much and said too little. His garb, rich as it was, had seen hard wear. Salt stains patterned his boots. The enamel of his nails was chipped. His lace was soiled by sweat, and she could see where the end of his cloak was fraying. And Salar picked his nose as if his snot was gold. He stood with his hands crossed at the wrists, his palms resting on the pommels of his blades. A curving Dothraki arak on his left hip, a mere stiletto on his right. Their hilts were a matched pair of golden women, naked and wanton. Are you skilled in the use of those handsome blades? Dany asked him. Prendel and Salar would tell you so, if dead men can talk. I count no day as lived unless I have loved a woman, slain a foeman, and eaten a fine meal. And the days that I have lived are as numberless as the stars in the sky. George wants us to disregard this as meaningless boast, but it's a strange boast in a world with Brendan, Melisandre, and the Undying.
Yeah.
I make of slaughter a thing of beauty, and many a tumbler and fire dancer has wept to the gods that they might be half so quick, a quarter so graceful. I would tell you the names of all the men I have slain, but before I could finish, your dragons would grow large as castles, the walls of Yunkai would crumble into yellow dust, and winter would come and go and come again. You could be telling the truth.
Could be.
Dany laughed. She liked the swagger she saw in the Starry on Harris. Oh, and I wanted to say, I love how George does this, right? He'll tell us things that are clues to what's really going on, and then he'll do it in such a way that we totally disregard it. Of course, my favorite is about Dany from Triple Tickers episode 4, right? It's where Barristan says, I will tell you about your father and those that came before him, Rhaegar most of all, right? Which are words that literally only make sense if Rhaegar is their father. But you point that out to people, even though the way somebody writes a book is they carefully craft their words and they come up with those words. They don't have a dream where Barristan appears before them and speaks and they write it down, right? That's not how writing books works, right? Yeah. If you choose words that literally only make sense if something is true, there's a good chance you did that for a reason.
Right. Well, he's sitting there telling her that, hey, I'm going to tell you about your father, and then the ones that come before him.
Right.
It didn't say anything about your brother.
Rhaegar is the main answer to your question.
The other way that sentence could be written is, I will tell you about your father and those that came before him, but most of all, I'm going to tell you about your father.
Yep. Dany laughed. She liked the swagger sentence in this Daario Naharis. Draw your sword and swear it to my service. In a blink, Dario's Eric was free of its sheath. His submission was as outrageous as the rest of him, a great swoop that brought his face down to her toes. My sword is yours. My life is yours. My love is yours. My blood, my body, my songs, you own them all. I live and die at your command, fair queen. Then live, Dany said, and fight for me tonight. Live and die at your command. Anyway. That would not be wise, my queen. Sir Jorah gave Daario a cold, hard stare. Keep this one here under guard until the battle's fought and won. She considered a moment, then shook her head. If he can give us the Stormcrows, surprise is certain. If he betrays you, surprise is lost. Dany looked down at the sellsword again. He gave her such a smile that she flushed and turned away. He won't. How can you know that? She pointed to the lumps of blackened flesh the dragons were consuming, bite by bloody bite. I would call that proof of his sincerity. Daario Naharis, have your Stormcrows ready to strike the youngish rear when my attack begins. Can you get back safely? If they stop me, I will say I have been scouting and saw nothing. Tyroshi rose to his feet, bowed, and swept out. So Jorah Mormont lingered. Your Grace, he said too bluntly. That was a mistake. We know nothing of this man. We know that he's a great fighter. A great talker, you mean. He brings us the Stormcrows. And he has blue eyes. Or possibly purple. 500 sellswords, uncertain loyalty. All loyalties are uncertain in such times as these, Dany reminded him. And I shall be betrayed twice more, once for gold and once for love. Daenerys, I am thrice your age, Sir Jorah said. I've seen how false men are. Very few are worthy of trust, and Daario Naharis is not one of them. Even his beard wears false colors. Just a minute. I gotta do something with these dogs.
Okay. Get him. Take him. You can do it. Lizzie, I hope you get to feeling better soon. I'm so sorry. COVID is not a good thing. I've had it twice. The first time was murder. Second time wasn't as bad.
Sorry about that. They were growling at each other, so I told them they were going to go in timeout, and then I didn't really. But so they may growl again. We'll see what happens.
Okay. I was giving you words of encouragement.
All loyalties are uncertain in such times as these, I said, right?
Yeah.
Oh, no, Daenerys, I'm twice your age. We did that. That angered her.
Yeah, that angered her.
Whilst you have an honest beard? Is that what you were telling me? You're the only man I should ever trust? He stiffened. I did not say that. You say it every day. Piet priest. You say it every day. Piet priest a liar. Zaro's a schemer. Belwas a braggart. Arson an assassin. Do you think I'm still some virgin girl that I cannot hear the words behind the words? Your Grace. She bowled over him. You've been a better friend to me than any I have known. A better brother than Viserys ever was. You are the first of my Queen's Guard, the commander of my army, my most valued counselor, my good right hand. I honor and respect and cherish you, but I do not desire you, Jorah Mormont, and I am weary of you trying to push every other man in the world away from me. So I must needs rely on you and you alone. It will not serve, and it will not make me love you any better. Mormont had flushed red when she first began, but by the time Dany was done, his face was pale again. He stood still as stone. If my queen commands, he said, curt and cold. Dany was warm enough for both of them. She does, she said. She commands. Now go see to your Unsullied, sir. You have a battle to fight and win. When he was gone, Dany threw herself down on her pillows beside her dragons. She had not meant to be so sharp with Ser Jorah, but his endless suspicion had finally woken her dragon. So she was using her mad brother's term to describe her temper.
Yeah.
Get them rich. Sorry, I didn't see that. He will forgive me, she told herself. I am his liege. Dany found herself wondering whether he was right about Daario. She felt very lonely all of a sudden. Mary Mozdor had promised that she would never bear a living child. House Targaryen will end with me. That made her sad. You must be my children, she told the dragons. My 3 fierce children. Arston says dragons live longer than men, so you will go on after I am dead. So that's some interesting foreshadowing, and the showrunners knew more than we do.
Right.
Drogon looped his neck around and nipped at her hand. His teeth were very sharp, but he never broke her skin when they played like this. Dany laughed and rolled him back and forth until he roared, his tail lashing like a whip. It's longer than it was, she saw, and tomorrow it will be longer still. They grow quickly now, and when they are grown, I shall have my wings. Mounted on a dragon, she could lead her own men to battle, as she hadn't asked for, but as yet they were still too small to bear her weight. But we were told they were getting pretty close at the beginning of this book, right? Remember, we talked about that. We talked about it in the Dany's first chapter in this book that he really was setting the seeds up that she would be able to fly, but like really soon.
Mm.
But here we're still seeing that they haven't quite made it yet.
Right.
But they are growing fast, and they're almost there.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, the interesting thing at the time we called it out because I kind of always assumed that the 5-year gap had thrown him off. But no, he was implying that he wasn't, the way it was written, it wasn't going to take 5 years. It was going to be very little time.
Oh, okay.
I remember us having that conversation anyway.
Yeah, I can't remember much, man.
A stillness settled over her camp when midnight came and went. Dany remained in her pavilion with her maids, while Arston Whitebeard and strong Belwas kept the guard. The waiting is the hardest part. To sit in her tent with idle hands while her battle was being fought without her made Dany feel half a child again, which sounds an awful lot like Kat, right? The Whispering Wood, she talks about that and how hard it is to wait and all that. Lizzie says, I wish Jorah would remember the age gap before he kissed Dany, pervert. And he's the one who's reminding her here. He's like, I'm thrice your age. The hours crept by on turtle feet. Even after Jikri rubbed the knots from her shoulders, Dany was too restless for sleep. Missandei offered to sing her a lullaby of the peaceful people, but Dany shook her head. Bring me Arston, she said. When the old man came, she was curled up inside her Rakhar pelt, whose musty smell still reminded her of Drogo's. That's the white line.
Yeah.
And she does clarify that here in a little bit. I cannot sleep when men are dying for me, Whitebeard, she said. Tell me more of my brother Rhaegar, if you would. I like the tale you told me on the ship of how he decided that he must be a warrior. Your Grace is kind to say so. And actually, he's going to hint that it's not quite what he thought here. Because at the time, he claimed that he must have seen something in his scrolls, but we're about to get a better explanation. Viserys said that our brother won many tourneys. Nerve of the perv. Arston bowed his white head respectfully. It is not meet for me to deny his Grace's words. But, said Dany sharply, tell me, I command it. Prince Rhaegar's prowess was unquestioned, but he seldom entered the lists. He never loved the Song of Swords the way that Robert did or Jaime Lannister. It was something he had to do, a task the world had set him. He did it well, for he did everything well. That was his nature. But he took no joy in it. Men said that he loved his harp much better than his lance. Kind of reminds me of Ned saying you're not allowed to take joy in killing, right?
Right.
On some journeys, surely, said Dany, disappointed. When he was young, his grace rode brilliantly in a tourney at Storm's End, defeating Lord Stephen Baratheon, Lord Jason Mallister, the Red Viper of Dorne, and a mystery knight who proved to be the infamous Simon Toyne, chief of the Kingswood Outlaws. He broke 12 lances against Sir Arthur Dayne that day. Was he the champion then? No, your grace. That honor went to another knight of the Kingsguard who unhorsed Prince Rhaegar in the final tilt. So there's a few things there. One thing that it tells us is that he beat Dane after those 12 broken lances, right? So they were basically a draw, but he was slightly better than Arthur.
Right.
And then he lost to Barristan in the final after defeating Arthur. And that tells us that he's winning these fights and winning and losing and drawing these fights against the two greatest knights in the realm, right? When he's younger, without anybody fixing a fight. He then studies more, gets better, and then he defeats Barristan in the final tilt. And everyone's like, "Oh, it was rigged." Was it though? Because obviously Arthur and Barristan were not holding back; they were trying to defeat him, and when he was less skilled than we see him there, he is the match for Arthur and almost match for Barristan.
Right.
So claiming that it had to be rigged for him to win, like BS. It did not have to be rigged for him to win. That's all I'm saying.
Especially if he'd already had his eyes on Lyanna.
Right. And Barristan tells us that can make the difference, that anybody can beat anybody on any given day, that there are
we
people
see it with Jorah. Jorah, when he got the favor of his soon-to-be...
He's telling us... he hasn't... I guess that's actually later, because that's what the reveal, and he's still arson here. But he's telling us specifically that can make the difference. Having, doing it for someone, being inspired by someone can make the difference in two people that are nearly evenly matched. And he's basically showing us here that he was evenly matched with Arthur Dayne, maybe slightly better and almost as good as Jorah. Right? Oh, sorry. I was good with Barristan.
Yeah, I know what you meant.
Yeah.
Now, there are those that will say that his friendship with Arthur might have swayed it slightly. But
no, think about that. For Arthur to tie him 12 times in a row, that's a risk. That's a risk. If you're fighting so well that you're tying them 12 times in a row, come on. That's a coin toss.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I'm just going to say that there are those that will say that Arthur's friendship,
it's BS.
The numbers are in our favor.
Motivation of the heart, says Edward Martin. Absolutely.
Yep.
They did not want to hear about Rhaegar being unhorsed. But what tourney did my brother win? Your Grace, the old man hesitated. He won the greatest tourney of them all. Which was that? Dany demanded. The tourney Lord Went staged at Harrenhal beside the God's Eye in the year of the false spring. A notable event. Besides the jousting, there was a melee in the old style fought between 7 teams of knights, as well as archery and axe throwing, a horse race, a tournament of singers, a mummer show, and many feasts and frolics. Lord Went was as open-handed as he was rich. The lavish purses he proclaimed drew hundreds of challengers. Even your royal father came to Harrenhal when he had not left the Red Keep for long years. The greatest lords and mightiest champions of the 7 kingdoms rode in that tourney, and the Prince of Dragonstone best of them all. But that was the tourney when he crowned Lyanna Stark as Queen of Love and Beauty, said Dany. Princess Elia was there, his wife, and yet my brother gave the crown to the Stark girl, and later stole her away from her betrothed. How could he do that? Did the Dornish woman treat him so ill? It is not for such as me to say what might have been in your brother's heart, your grace. Princess Elia was a good and gracious lady, though her health was ever delicate. Dany pulled the lion pelt tighter about her shoulders. See right there, they tell us it's a lion pelt.
Yeah.
Viserys said once that it was my fault for being born too late. She had denied it hotly, she remembered, going so far as to tell Viserys that it was his fault for not being born a girl. He beat her cruelly for that. He beat her cruelly for that insolence. If I had been born more timely, he said, Rhaegar would have married me instead of Elia, and it would all have come out different. If Rhaegar had been happy in his wife, he would not have needed the Stark girl. Perhaps so, your grace. Whitebeard paused a moment. But I'm not certain it was in Rhaegar to be happy. You make him sound so sour, Dany protested. Of course, the irony here, when he needed Dany's mother. Anyway, you make him sound so. See Trump Poltergeist episode 4. You make him sound so sour, Dany protested. like a Dornish lemon. Again, Speed Tripletarians episode 4. Tower, no, but there was a melancholy to Prince Rhaegar, a sense. The old man hesitated again. Say it, she urged. A sense of doom. He was born in grief, my queen, and that shadow hung over him all his days. Viserys had spoken of Rhaegar's birth only once. Perhaps the tale saddened him too much. It was the shadow of Summerhall that haunted him, was it not? Yes. And yet Summerhall was the place the prince loved best. He would go there from time to time with only his harp for company. Even the knights of the Kingsguard did not attend him there. He liked to sleep in the ruined hall beneath the moon and stars. Whenever he came back, he would bring a song. When you heard him play his high harp with the silver strings and sing of twilights and tears and the death of kings, you could not but feel that he was singing of himself and those he loved. The ghosts of Highheart's prophecies are usually associated with the deaths of kings. See gray areas, the mysterious life of Rhaegar Targaryen. Right, and that's why he's got prophecy. It's not that he saw something in the scrolls. It's that he's visiting with the ghost. Right. That's what he's doing. That's why he's going there without the Kingsguard, and then coming back and singing of the death of kings, because that's what she's always prophesizing. If you look at her prophecies, they're almost all associated with the deaths of kings.
Yeah.
What of the usurper? Did he play sad songs as well? Arstan chuckled. Robert liked songs that made him laugh. The bawdier the better. He only sang when he was drunk, and then it was like to be a cask of ale or 54 tons or the Bear and the Maiden Fair. Robert was much as one. Her dragons lifted their heads and roared. Horses! Dany leapt to her feet, clutching the lion pelt. Outside, she heard strong bellows something, and then other voices and the sounds of many horses. Here, you go see who. So he was interrupted when he said Robert was much. I don't know. I don't know what he's going to say that if it matters.
Right.
Usually you can kind of figure out what was interrupted and why it's important that it was interrupted, but I don't know what that was.
Yeah, usually though with George, if there's an interruption, it's usually important.
Yeah,
not all the time, but usually.
Yeah, I wonder if there was some sort of clue about how Robert was a better man than she realized, and so this is Dany being denied the knowledge of anyway. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. The tent flap pushed open, and Sir Jorah Mormont entered. He was dusty and spattered with blood, but otherwise none the worse for battle. The exile knight went to one knee before Dany and said, Your Grace, I bring you victory. The Stormcoast turned their cloaks. The slaves broke, and the second sons were too drunk to fight, just as you said. 200 dead, Yunkai for the most part. Their slaves threw down their spears and ran, and their sellswords yielded. We have several thousand captives. Our own losses? A dozen, if that many. Only then did she allow herself to smile. Eyes, my good brave bear. Was Groston taken, or the Titan's bastard? Groston went to Yunkai to deliver your terms. Sir Jorah got to his feet. Miro fled once he realized the Stormcrows had turned. I have men hunting him. He shouldn't escape us long. He won't escape. He won't escape Arstan anyway. Very well, Dany said. Sellsword or slave, spare all those who will pledge me their faith. If enough of the second sons will join us, keep the company intact. The dragons roared just as the bear and the maiden fairs mentioned. The next day, they marched the last 3 leagues to Yunkai. The city was built of yellow bricks instead of red. Elsewise, it was asked to pour all over again with the same crumbling walls and high-step pyramids, the great harpy mounted above its gates. The wall and tower swarmed with crossbowmen and slingers. So Jorah and Grey Worm deployed her men. Irri and Jiqui raised her pavilion, and Dany sat down to wait. On the morning of the 3rd day, the city gates swung open, and a line of slaves began to emerge. Dany mounted her silver to greet them. As they passed, little Miss Sandy told them that they owed their freedom to Daenerys Stormborn, the Unburnt, Queen of the 7 Kingdoms of Westeros and Mother of Dragons. Misha! A brown-skinned man shouted out at her. He had a child on his shoulder, a little girl, and she screamed the same word in her thin voice, Misha! Misha! Dany looked at Miss Sandy. What are they shouting? It is Jaskari, the old pure tongue. It means mother. Dany felt a lightness in her chest. I will never bear a living child, she remembered. Her hands trembled as she raised it. Perhaps she smiled. She must have, because the men grinned and shouted again, and others took up the cry. Misha, they called. Misha! Misha! They were all smiling at her, reaching for her, kneeling before her. Maela, some called her, while others cried, Aila Lala, or Cathay, or Tato.
Whatever. I'm so glad you're reading this instead of me.
I have no idea how to pronounce these things. Whatever the tongue, it all meant the same thing. Mother. They're calling me mother. Although it does make me wonder if there's some significance to these. Like one kind of looks like Quaith there, the Cathay
Yeah.
I don't know. Chant grew, spread, swelled. It swelled so loud that it frightened her horse, and the mare backed and shook her head and lashed her silver gray tail. It swelled until it seemed to shake the yellow walls of Yunkai. More sleighs were streaming from the gates every moment, and as they came, they took up the call. They were running toward her now, pushing, stumbling, wanting to touch her hand, to stroke her horse's mane, kiss her feet. Her poor blood riders could not keep them all away. Even strong Bellis grunted and growled in dismay. So Jorah urged her to go, but Dany remembered a dream she had dreamed in the House of the Undying. They will not hurt me, she told him. They are my children, Jorah. She laughed, put her heels into her horse, and rode to them, the bells in her hair ringing sweet victory. She trotted, then cantered, then broke into a gallop, her braids streaming behind. The freed slaves parted before her. Mother, they called from 100 throats, 1,000, 10,000. Mother, they sang, their fingers brushing her legs as she flew by. Mother, mother, mother.
Just like the crow.
Up next, Storm 43, Arya 8. Wolf Girl, you're mine.
Oh, man, I gotta get a chair. It's got to back into it. It's sitting here. Oh. Sorry.
No problem.
Yeah.
I was
I like
telling you
that chapter.
I was telling you before we started that I saw this Reddit post that was claiming that
We're right.
that was claiming that Viserion is Lannister encoded, and there was some speculation in the comments that maybe and they were asking, well, but why green? And there was speculation in the comments that Aegon being crowned is like the Greens, and I was thinking to myself, so your argument is that this is a Lannister dragon and a dragon for the Greens led by when Aegon is crowned. Why does that sound familiar?
Well, I told you my theory on the dragon colors, and I'm gonna go ahead and tell them here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Lady Thistle probably might have seen the video where I talked about this. I don't know. You got red and black, green and gold, and then cream or white and gold. Correct? Those are the three dragons. All right.
Yep.
Red and black is Targaryen Dany. All right. The green and gold is Cersei. Okay. Green eyes, gold hair, but she wears green a lot. And then the white and gold represents Jaime. They are the twins from the same father. If Dany is actually the Mad King's daughter, don't get mad at me yet. That was the theory on the dragon colors. Now,
Sure.
Granted, we think Dany is part of a different trio that
Right.
has
Right, and so really, I mean, if you're thinking of these as who they were intended for, rather than who winds up riding them in battle,
right.
It's probably the V goes with V, right? Viserion goes with Val, and as the Senya versus Vagar, right? And then right, and so clearly that would mean Aegon was. We're in agreement. We would be in agreement with the speculation that Aegon would be the Green Dragon as the Greens, but you could easily see based on your assignment of the colors that it could be the other way around, right? It could be that Myrcella. It could be that Myrcella is viewed as the green because of the princess and the queen, right? And so it could easily be the other way around. You could see that as well.
Right. Well, I mean, with the color assignments and the dragons to people, the white and gold is the one that I have the hardest time with. The only white and gold in the story that pops in my mind is Jaime. When he kills Ares, he's wearing the gold armor, but he's still wearing the white cloak because it's not typical for Kingsguard to wear gold and white. They're generally white. So the only Kingsguard that gets away with it is Jaime with the gold and white. That's the person that when I was thinking of who the dragon is meant for.
If Jaime became the Queenmaker after complaining about Kristen, right? After complaining about Kristen, if he became the Queenmaker and joined his daughter and tried to push her claim, then that would be that might make sense then for her, right? Because one of the things we speculate about is that the princess and the queen in a way seem to be Arianne seems to be echoing that, right? With where she tried to crown Queen Myrcella, but she's likely going to want to crown King Aegon and marry King Aegon and crown King Aegon,
right?
And so she's after pushing the claim of Myrcella, she's probably even though she's the one who's her father's chosen heir, she's probably going to push for Aegon to usurp Myrcella, whose claim she was pushing, right? And so in a way, so you could see that so you could see the greens and blacks are somewhat backwards from the in terms of which one is typically referred to as the queen, which one's typically referred to the princess, right? So which makes it harder then to say which one's the greens, and so if the argument is well green is Cersei's eye color, and Cersei may be pushing for Myrcella after.
Yeah, well, we get all like with the green dresses, the wildfire flashy shadowy on top of her. We get a lot of green imagery when it comes to Cersei, and that was what I mean. There has to be a reason why the dragons are different colors, why their flames match that color, and that I mean.
So you could see either way, right? You could see one option you could see is that if Jaime is the one pushing Myrcella, then maybe he would be more likely to be on the the cream or white dragon. But whereas if Cersei's the one, and of course, like as we said, you could kind of see the greens being the green dragon being either one of them, depending upon how you view which one's the princess and which one's the queen.
Right. Well, I mean, I just see more green imagery with Cersei than Myrcella.
But we don't know whether Cersei or Jaime or both will be pushing Myrcella.
Yeah, we don't know if Tommen will be alive at that time.
Right. Or it could be they both rally around Myrcella.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with you. I don't see Jaime and Cersei on the same side of anything.
Makes more sense that
but
they're not.
The only thing that could bring them together is his daughter. So, but I don't know if we got enough story left in the two books to come to that point. But I mean,
did you see people arguing that that George's not his most recent one now, because his most recent one is the chickens are coming, but his previous words of wisdom post on his blog, well, not a blog. So he put words of wisdom, and he put a blue rose, and then he put a picture of Faulkner saying, "Dreams have only one owner at a time. That's why dreamers are lonely." William Faulkner, right? And it's put current mood contemplative, tag dreams writing. But the thing is, he's always talking about how Faulkner is sort of his guiding light for writing,
right?
And it's a quote about dreams, although he did put a blue rose first, so I don't know.
The way I read that is that maybe the creative fire that was in him when he was writing these books to begin with over 10 years ago might be relit, and that Westeros is now again taking over his dreams, and he's either waking up in the middle of the night to write down what he was thinking, or doing it first thing in the morning to hopefully get himself out of the Myronese knot, the what do you call it?
Pulling the weeds of winter.
Yeah. That the weeds of winter.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean,
it does sound like it does sound like he's a little more optimistic and maybe writing. Other people have argued that he's saying this is my story, right? The dreams have only one owner at a time,
right?
That's why demons are lonely.
I mean, he's not a real big fan of fan fiction for sure. He hates it. He doesn't think it deserves to be out there.
Yeah, maybe somebody write
fan fiction that you need to pay royalties to him for writing about his world type thing. So
yeah,
I mean,
I'm wearing my Preston shirt. Maybe somebody pointed him to Preston, and he got pissed off and said, "Hey, there's only one owner."
Yeah. Oh well, I mean, I tend to. Now, don't get me wrong. Chris the Crow is the one that put me onto this. Those videos that I think were made for YouTube, where it shows Brandon Stark on his way to River Run, and he meets the guy that's sitting there hanging over the spikes. And then also Brandon against Baelish. They did it's a low budget, short little film. It's worth looking up.
How do I find it? What do I search for?
YouTube, just look for just I don't know, type in Brandon film or Brandon and Peter's duel film. See if you can come up with it. That Chris, do you remember what it was?
The Wild Wolf, a prequel film?
I don't know if that's it or not. How long is it?
That one's 16 minutes.
That might be it.
From independent
Not long.
online cinema. Baelish forces Belwas faces Belwas today at a Song of Madness. Oh, interesting. I haven't checked it out today yet. It is always fun to see people's arguments. Although, of course, you agree with one of them and not the other, so it kind of makes it sometimes frustrating.
You're sitting there clapping one and booing the other. Oh, well, I mean, a lot of times when I see, I'm like, anybody knows Fraggle Rock, Wembley is the character that whoever he's talking to, that's the way his wind blows. If he's talking to one, then he agrees with them. If he's talking to the other one, he agrees with them. He has a really hard time making a choice or having an opinion of his own. I am the same way when it comes to anything discussing A Song of Ice and Fire. My flag flows the same direction as the last person that I watched or the last person that I talked to.
So this one starts off with just the words, the year is 282 AC. House Targaryen is losing its grip on Westeros.
That I don't remember, man. It was a while ago that he showed me this.
I was hoping it would jog your memory as to whether that's
no. I'm hoping Chris would.
Words
I think
on
that's
the
it. Yeah. Well,
so he thinks this is it. Okay. House Stark and Tully seek to consolidate their alliance.
Exactly.
Heir to Winterfell is betrothed to Catelyn Tully. I think that's it. Wild Wolf. Not all are pleased with the announcement of this marriage. Least of all, Peter Baelish.
Okay, that might be the duel.
South Park episode. Imagination. Anyway, all right. I'll check it out.
Yeah, they're definitely worth watching. They're low budget, but they're actually, I mean, they're not bad. The character they got playing, the character they got playing Brandon, I like. I think they did a really good job on him.
So you told me they have more, huh?
Yeah, I wish they did, but I don't know if they got in trouble or not. I mean, it's still up on YouTube, so they can't be in that much trouble. I'm assuming they just ran out of
6 years ago.
Yeah, like it's been a while. I can't remember crap, but I can remember Chris showing me these videos.
Well, they've got some Lord of the Rings prequels too.
Uh-oh. I haven't seen those. Chris, have you seen them?
Huh. One of them is an hour and 11 minutes long. Not the prequel. Oh, that is the prequel.
Mm.
That is one of their prequels. One of their prequels is over an hour long. 14 years ago.
I might have to actually look that up then. But yeah, the duel with Brandon and Peter, they have Brandon, Peter, Edmund, Lysa, and Kat. And those are the only people I think that you see in the entire thing. And then the other one, they got Brandon riding through the woods and you hear help or something. And he goes up to somebody that was a bad boy at the tourney of Harrenhal, and he's hanging by a rope.
I like that South Park episode, Imagination. Not being a smartass, just saying imagination, creativity is a plus.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't understand why some people have problem with fan fiction. George is old school, so I kind of understand his. Like I said, I'm Wembley. I kind of understand both sides. So when I'm watching a debate on two different people, I tend to understand why people are pulling for this one or why they're pulling for that one. I try not to be judgmental, or I just see I see both sides.
Yep. Anyway.
All right. We're an hour this time.
Yeah, we're gone. We've gone long enough.
I'm kind of make up for lack of Wednesdays. Sorry. Again, Lady Thistle, I do apologize that Lizzie was sick in bed, and that before we go, you give me homework all the time, okay? I'm gonna give you homework this
All right,
time.
what's the homework?
All right. I was
Yeah,
telling Lady
yeah,
Thistle, this is what I wanted to talk about.
Watch. Here we go.
This is what I wanted to talk about Wednesday, but it didn't work out that way.
All right.
When we did the last chapter, and there's the storm um, that John gets away in and all that kind of stuff. I got to thinking, their weather in this story, is it God's sin? Is it a person sin or something sending weather? Because there's a lot of weather events that have multiple things happening in it. One, the weather masked and makes it unable for them to catch Bran. It also gives Bran the first time he reaches out to grab Hodor. It also masks Summer and gives John the opportunity to escape in the rain. The storm that sinks the ship for Tyrion, it sets them to the slavers that puts him on his path and Jorah's path to get back to or to get to Dany, but it also puts Makaro in the water to be found by Victorian to save his life and give him the fiery hand of R'hllor, which their ships were sent asunder. So the weather itself put him on the path to find Makoro. You got the winds that slow the Stannis fleet down. But then you also got the wind that speeds them up to get them to the point to where they could save John. You got the rain that masked the Hound sneaking into the Brotherhood Without Banners camp and then getting back out. But you also got the rain that helps him snag Arya and not be discovered. You have the rain
and at the Red Wedding.
Right. I'm getting to that. Okay.
That helps them escape.
Yeah, it gets them at the exact time that they need to be there for Arya to see what's going on and then the Hound to catch him. But the rain that flooded the rivers also slows down Robb long enough that he's talking about his succession. If he gets to the twins quicker, him and Kat don't have this conversation. So they already had, he gives them time to plan who he wants to wear the crown after him if something happens, but also forms a plan for Lady Mormont and was it a Malister? Two people to go find Howland Reed, and they send them on. They're not at the twins. So, I mean, all of this weather stuff, it either a plot device or there's something that is really going on on the bigger scale that's helping.
And if Melisandre and Euron can perform blood magic to control the weather, then why couldn't Bran control the weather?
Right. So I'm saying that the weather is a big time. I mean, you got the storm gods, you got the drown god. They've been fighting forever. I mean, are the old gods just actually the collection of all the other gods other than the seven? Because the theory is that was kind of like recently made up by the Endos. But is the old gods actually the storm god, the drown god, all these other old actual gods from the Planetos? Is that actually what the old gods really is? So, I mean, I don't know. It was something that popped in my head as soon as I hit off or end. I'm like, damn it, I wish I had said it while we were still filming. I asked Lady Thistle about it. She was going to come up with some questions and possibly think of some other weather-related things that happen in the story. I think there's some weather-related stuff that happens at High Heart. I can't remember all. But, I mean, it's just, I was throwing it out there. But that's your homework.
Okay.
Think about it. You ain't got to actually look it up, but
yeah.
But James says he likes it.
Yeah, I'm fairly on board with the fact that it has to be.
I just saw what Pod said. Dark. Hey, you never know. All right. Well, it's Friday. On every Friday, I wish y'all would have a safe and fun weekend. Lizzie, we're all sending you good vibes. Hopefully you get to feeling better. And we will see you Monday. Have a good weekend, everybody. Sanji, congratulations on beating Chris. James, I know you're off on Fridays. You work long hours Monday through Thursday, so I'm glad you've been able to catch us here lately. I appreciate it. You're an old friend from back when Twitter was Twitter, so I definitely appreciate seeing you here. Everybody else, thank you, and we'll see you on Monday. So
Have a good one.
have a good one. Bye, Richard.
Bye.
Oh, like the video or you'll be haunted by Magic Brother. y'all be good. Take care. Bye.
Sounds good. Bye.
Thanks, James.
Yeah, you too.